Yeah, I don't know what the phrase is doing, but
There he is.
I just
where's the intro?
tethering to my phone. So,
hey, that's better. That's better, my guy.
Back in business. Welcome to Game of Nodes, a weekly podcast on the cosmos from independent validator teams. Hello and welcome to Game of Nodes, a weekly podcast on the cosmos from independent validator teams. And that was the strangest intro we've had in a long while. I couldn't tell when it started. I couldn't tell when it ended. Kind of seemed to end halfway through a bit of the thing. So, yeah. Hey guys, what's going on, man?
I mean, that was the normal intro, right? I feel like that was the normal intro.
Maybe I just got rugged by the internet there.
Well, you just reconnected, and the next thing you know, you're like, "Oh shit, we're live!"
Like, oh, we're here. What's happening?
Yeah,
that's how it works.
I mean, but this is why, going back to last week's conversation, this is why we get the business internet, to a separate SIM card, so that when everything goes to shit, we can still join the podcast.
So, for context, those that don't know, the Frey has just had to tether to his phone rather than use his home internet because it was playing up.
Should be fine.
It was not working great.
Which is weird because it should be a 2 gig line. And yet it wasn't. Obviously today it was 700 kilobits for a second there, which is somewhat baffling. But
I would say it was a good bit less than 700 kilobits. It was pretty bad on this side, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm using Colin's internet, so courtesy of Artifact Staking. Thanks, guys.
Oh yeah, where are you at?
I'm in LA.
No,
in LA, man. Yeah, yesterday I rode a bicycle from Manhattan Beach to Venice Beach.
Oh yeah, nice.
And then Santa Monica and back.
Yeah,
it was probably like 45 kilometers. And man, I woke up this morning and my quads and my knees were fucking wrecked.
After 45 kilometers.
Yeah, meanwhile the phrase like do that
I sleep. Yeah, exactly.
Go to the coffee shop.
I actually did do 45 kilometers last Tuesday to go to our finance guys and back because they're way out south of here. So just cycled over, had the meeting, cycled back.
I was not in a good way. Like for me, that was a lot. Like I haven't done a lot of exercise in the last 18 months, and
it's the validator way.
Yeah, holy shit, man! Like riding there, the tire on the bike was probably 1/3 flat, which didn't help.
That does
and
not
then
help.
That's not going to help.
The rear tire, and then when you stand up to pump, this is an old rusty bike that I borrowed off someone. When you stand up to pump, the front suspension was bouncing right up and down, so I wasn't getting the full mojo into it. And, it was noticeable by the time I got back. I feel like I put in probably an extra 30% work that I didn't need to.
I mean, that's the story of life, isn't it, really? You just summed up my entire experience of everything. It's just put in about 30% more effort than was even necessary and ended up just tired and emotional at the end of it.
So the whole effort aside, though, went to Santa Monica, had a great coffee and a nice hamburger. So I went to Venice Beach and then Santa Monica.
Which coffee place did you go to in Santa Monica?
Oh, it's called Blue Bottle something or other.
It's not that one on the corner, is it? On the main drag?
Yeah, well, it is on a corner. Yeah.
With decent coffee, pastries, and a window. Seats down the window on the left hand side.
Yeah. Have you been there?
Yeah. I worked from there for about 4 days in a month, just before the pandemic, basically.
Blue Bottle's
such well traveled, sir. Such well traveled.
Yeah, it's the only place where they just, as long as I kept buying coffee, they didn't fucking throw me out. So
I sat there for about an hour noting, and they were like, "Yeah, he bought a coffee, right?" So
they're just happy you're there.
It fulfilled the Los Angeles meme in that the barista was just loudly telling anybody who would listen all about his acting auditions. And his band. He was in from what I could tell based on clothing and vibe, I was feeling classic rock or maybe hair metal at a push, but probably more classic rock. So that was kind of funny. It hit a lot of. I was just like, and it was the same people most days. So I was kind of like, let's see what we're going over here today while I'm trying to fix this iOS bug.
So the thing that struck me the most about Venice was like just the sheer quant of chads getting around. There was like mega chads everywhere. I could
was
not
it not like the
believe
homeless
it.
camp on the beach? That was the thing that fucking struck
Oh
me.
yeah, no, there was homos, but the fucking chads, man. Like as soon as I got there, there was like 10.5 foot tall people that were like wedge shaped with like 40 packs. I'm like, and they're just wandering around. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, what is this place? There's just chads everywhere.
They spend
just fucking work out and like just try to get in movies.
I guess so. I mean, if you're going to do it anywhere in the world, that's probably the place to do it, to be fair. But yeah, I just remember being super freaked out by, not freaked out, it's not the right term, but just so like the extent to which there's like a tent city on the beach, like it's India and this is LA, and you're like, whoa.
I mean, there was
far out.
There was a bit of that going on, but I mean,
I don't know if that all got cleared out because of COVID or something. Maybe it got.
No, it was still there, but I just don't feel like that's unusual these days. Like you go to a capital city, there's like a tent city there somewhere these days. It's it's common now. It's commonplace. There's like no, there's no move along anymore. It's like, oh, you want to live here? Okay, no worries, go for it.
Yeah, fair enough. To be fair, I don't remember seeing that anywhere in Australia.
Oh yeah, fuck, mate. It's there. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
In Canberra?
Maybe not. Well, I don't really get around Canberra that much, but
yeah, of course
for sure in Sydney and Melbourne. Oh yeah, I go to fucking Canberra on the weekends. No, I don't.
Yeah,
go
exactly.
there.
Of course you don't.
I've been there twice.
You go to the Gold Coast, don't you, for a good time?
I do go to the Gold Coast, but I don't go.
I fucking knew it.
But I don't go to like Surfers Paradise.
Okay. Do you hire a jet ski?
No.
No, you're not a jet ski guy.
No, we go hiking in the mountains. There's some good mountains just like in the hinterland of
Have you forgotten the rule of jet skis? Nobody ever looks unhappy on a jet ski, right?
I can't afford to hire a jet ski, man.
Well, maybe not the bear market, but you should have gone there during the bull market. You could have bought a jet ski, put it on the company, whatever. Corporate entertaining.
I put all my money into my nodes now.
I put all my money into Chihuahua. I don't know why I pronounce it like that. It's Chihuahua.
Chihuahua.
Yeah, Chihuahua and Chihuahua coin.
So I guess in reference to my trip, Cause Less Harm says null eat tacos, a plethora of tacos. So everyone has actually said that, and I have not come across one fucking taco track.
Okay, so go to Venice and then like fuck off a ways to I think it's like a Whole Foods or something that's like about 8 blocks back from the beach, maybe a few more. There are street tacos outside there. They're really good.
Never came across any. And ain't going back.
It's opposite a fake English pub called the Cock and Bull.
So Jake's advice to me, he said, if you're in Venice and you see any fucking food truck that's got a line up outside of it, stop and get out of your fucking vehicle and wait in the line.
It's good advice.
Yeah. But I didn't come across any, so I didn't have to do that.
Advice.
Yeah.
All right.
So I hit Jake. So on your advice, Jake lived in Venice. So I hit him up yesterday. I'm like, I'm going to Venice. I'm in Venice. So where's the spot? Okay, I found a spot.
There's a good Irish bar.
All right, I found a coffee. Music. All right, thanks for the information. I'll see you later. I'm heading out of town. And then I called him fucking 3 hours later. He's like, oh yeah, man, I could have told you all these places, but he just didn't read his messages. So, ignored.
I mean, you could have asked me for specifics and I would have told you where those places were. It's just you were kind of and I was just like...
Well, I mean, you live in London. How would I just assume that you knew anything about Venice?
Because I've been to LA 4 times. I'm pretty well traveled, reasonably well in the US anyway. I've got opinions. I had opinions on pizza in Chicago. That should have been a clue. Maybe my opinions on pizza in Chicago were wrong, but I still have opinions. It should tell you something.
You weren't a fan of the deep dish.
I think I said, I wasn't a massive fan of the deep dish on the whole, but the Lou Manouties was pretty decent as far as it
good
goes.
advice.
Well, there's a chain, I gather.
Yeah.
So, do you know that I am now actually considered well-traveled by Americans?
You are.
Because you went to America.
Well, no, by American standards, I am well-traveled.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because most Americans have never even been outside their state, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty good. You're not spending enough time in specific places, but you're all over the fucking place.
I definitely fucked up in terms of time on location.
Yeah.
So
you never plan going in, so you just. There's nothing wrong with that either, right? You're just kind of going with it.
YOLO.
Right. And next time some places you want to go back, some places you're like, I'm good.
I've had a good time, but it has been I don't recommend anyone just go to a place without a plan. It has been an incredibly expensive fucking endeavor.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about Australia and New Zealand, because I've been backpacking there. It's just you can just mill around just burning kangaroo and kiwi bucks. You're just like, why is everything so fucking expensive? It's because I had no plan.
Yeah,
that's why everything's so fucking expensive. So what was your worst place?
When
your best place?
Okay, that's going to be controversial, but when you're booking shit like a couple of days ahead instead of months ahead, it is expensive. Yeah, even that flights. I caught a plane from from Seattle to LA. Had I just booked that a couple of weeks in advance, it would have been a third of the price.
Yeah.
And everything here is costing me an extra 50% in kangaroo bucks. And the thing is though, you
can't look at the kangaroo bucks conversion, otherwise it's always going to look terrible, isn't it?
Well, it's a tough pill to swallow, because I was here 10 years ago and our dollar at the time was almost parity and things were a lot fucking cheaper. And so
I remember when the pound was $2.2 US. We can all remember the past now, but it's a bit.
But what I'm saying is that last time I was here, things were cheap for me. It was you want a beer, it's $4 for a pint, and that was $4 Australian. And now you want a beer, it's costing me fucking $17 Australian. It's a big difference, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and
if you're paying $200 a night for a hotel over a month, it fucking adds up.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm lucky I've got friends Lavender and Artifact who have put me up for nights so I can enjoy these beautiful cities without hemorrhaging fucking money.
Right.
Did you actually go to SF in the end at any point?
To where?
San Francisco.
To San Francisco.
No. So my plan was actually to go from Portland, San Francisco, LA, but I had an Amtrak pass, but I didn't book far enough ahead, right? So I couldn't get a ticket from Portland to San Francisco.
Yeah.
So I was going to go to San Francisco and stay with Jake for a little bit, but I couldn't get a ticket. So I ended up just flying from Seattle to LA.
Oh, so you went north. You went from Portland to Seattle. You took a train north. Did you go to Seattle for a little bit?
No. So I was staying with Schultze.
Yeah.
In Portland, and they were coming to Disneyland down here in LA. So I got a lift with them to the Seattle airport and caught a plane from Seattle to.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so everyone's actually, my highlight of the last probably week and a half, 2 weeks has just been a fast food safari, really.
That's one thing this country's good at.
I've been hitting all the shit. So in Australia, Taco Bell is arse, right? And man, I had a Crunch Wrap Supreme from Taco Bell. That shit is epic. I would eat that every fucking day.
You saw Jesus?
Oh yeah. And so then we were Colin here at from Artifact. He's been he's taken me on the safari.
Did you go to
I went to went to In-N-Out, got a shirt for my partner. She's happy.
And what?
I haven't been to Whataburger, but he took me to Costco. He's you have to have the Costco hot dog.
The $1 or $1.50 hot dog or whatever it is.
$1.50 hot dog is they've never changed the price of this thing, so I'm having a $1.50 hot dog.
That's the equivalent of going to Greg's in Newcastle, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
When
Last
you're
night we went.
You go to Greg's and you buy a steak bake.
For £2.
We had a Costco ribeye. Holy shit, man! Costco steak is good.
You guys cooked it? You mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Their meat
So
department's actually pretty decent. Yeah.
oh man, it was like it was fresh and tender. I was like very surprised for the price. Costco is pretty good over here.
We get ribs and like Boston butts and shit like that. That's usually pretty cheap and they're usually pretty tasty.
Oh, it was good.
That's funny.
What else we have? So we had so last night we had Chick-fil-A, which is pretty epic. Like a Chick-fil-A deluxe and just like jam that fucking like sauce all over the thing. And
oh my goodness.
and then we went to like it's probably
what was left.
What's that?
No, what was left?
Oh yeah. What was left? Oh yeah, so I mean, like, it's probably more of a local thing, but we went and got these like thick shakes. I can't remember the name of the place, but they were epic, man. It was like it was 1,300 calories in a thick shake.
Yeah,
I couldn't fucking sleep.
Too funny.
And then for breakfast this morning, we went to Sidecar Donuts this morning for breakfast. So I had a coffee, and I fucked up. I had 2 donuts. And I was shaking till lunchtime. I had something called a butter and salt donut, which was just crazy. And then
donut degeneracy.
And the other one was like a cinnamon swirl type fucking situation. But yeah, so basically I've just been on like a food safari, and it's been pretty good, to be honest. Like, it's a good way to go out for the last week, just hitting all the fast food joints. Now I know, like, you know, when you're watching a movie and you're like, oh, I got to get fucking Chick-fil-A. And they're like, that's a good chicken burger.
Oh, man.
Well,
it sounds like so when you're out of there now, right? Like today or tomorrow or something?
Yeah, 9:00 tonight. So probably head off like an hour and a half after we finish the podcast here. Yeah. Get down there and get registered. But yeah, man, it's been a good time.
I once went to LAX after a send-off joint, and I was feeling fine until I got to security, and then it hit me, and I was just like, "Oh my god, they're gonna get me! They're gonna get me! They know!" And then I was like, and my brain was going, "It's fine. It's legal now. It's totally fine. You're in the clear." And that did not help at all. I was just sweating and not making eye contact with anybody. It was horrifying. And this was back when my passport I went around North Africa a few years ago, and so it had, like, you know, all the Arab Spring rogues gallery of passport stamps as well. So they take one look at it all and they're like, where the fuck was this? And you're like, hey, no worries. That's just Tunisia. No worries. Just about that. No worries. Nothing that's funny about that place. And they're like, what were you doing there? And I was like, what do people do really when they go places? You know, man, they just, you know, they go places and they hang out. They're like, this guy's fucking stoned as fuck. And I'm just like, you know, man, sometimes you just got to go to a place and see what the people are like, you know. Just try not to get fucking thrown. Thing is, I guess, like, if they're seeing you out the door, they don't give a shit if you're a terrorist or not, right? That's how it works in America, I guess.
Sure, plus or minus.
Yeah, maybe plus or minus. But yeah, that fucking the two that one stamp, that Tunisia stamp, but before my passport switched over to the new one I have, that caused me. The Americans didn't like the Tunisian stamp, was what I learned.
Like, what is this exactly?
Yeah, well, I'm just lucky I had the fucking foresight to not let them stamp my passport in Cuba back in the day. Otherwise, I guess it would have been even more problems. But that's another story, I guess.
Should we get to Cosmos stuff, or want to skip it this week?
What's happening, Cosmos? I mean, there was. Oh wait, hang on. I know what happened in Cosmos.
You got something?
I got something. I'm just very, very tired. We had a quintuple tombstone, I think, simultaneously, right?
Is it? How do we score this though? Because You
I can keep pressing the button. You can keep hiding it. I can keep pressing the button.
Total pain in the ass for me. Every one of those. Is it really a quintuple if it's the same validator on 5 networks, or are we counting them individual vals? This is a point of order.
Yes.
Is that a new one?
Ben Kingsley has the opinion, I think, there for us. I mean, it's quite a philosophical question, really. Is it
deep.
Are they all unique Tombstone events? Are they all part of the same? I mean, I think they probably all count as the same Tombstone.
This show has fucking layers.
So which tombstonings are you talking about? Lay it out
I believe Nodist tombstoned on 5 networks due to a misconfiguration while rolling some validators. So I think to Usurper's point, it was actually all kind of the same incident. If you're doing PagerDuty, you probably have called it all the same incident. The incident, like the underwhelming Porcupine Tree album, which I believe came up in conversation the other day. I apologize as well to listeners. This is really peak exhaustion, me, and I've just had a sip of beer. So this is going to be an off-track podcast. I can feel it in my bones. It's going to be one of those. I mean, things are. We've had a lot of fun, shall we say, over in another network as well the last week. So it's been a fun week. We also found out fun fact. So bear in mind that Callum and I wrote a lot of the documentation, or a portion of documentation for Cosmosm 1.0, and Callum wrote Cosmosm Hero to Zero, which is one of the kind of definitive, I guess, guides to getting started with Cosmosm. And we did the Cosmosm for Dummies. Cosmosm by Dummies YouTube series, which I still get a load of messages about, in terms of people getting started with Cosmosm and whatnot. And so the two of us, I would like to think we kind of were reasonably good at Cosmosm. We were very tired when we instantiated a contract last month, and we uploaded the wrong version of the contract using the wrong binary and the wrong configuration, the triple threat, and only discovered it this week when we were just like, oh, okay, there's actually a substantial amount of funds locked in that contract now because we just configured it fucking wrong, and there's actually no recovery pathway for that. So
yeah, it's fine.
We are clever.
That's fine. Very bad.
This is fine, dog, with flames in the background. So it's okay. It's important to recognize your mistakes and then come up with a path forward. We came up with the very grown-up idea to burn the funds. Because that's what grown-ups would do. We realized the contract in question actually had a burn function, even though it didn't have the other functions we needed. It had a burn function. Yeah. So we're just going to torch the fucking lot, sweep it under the rug, and happy days. I think that's the conclusion. There is, you win some, you lose some.
That's the growing-up thing to do.
It's it's kind of like a
hand it doesn't always go your way, man. It doesn't always go your way. That's what you learn in life.
It's like the cat on the string JPEG, right? It's really what you guys are. Just
hang in there. Yeah, it's like it's my impression of the cat. Hang in there.
It really sucks when you're on a immutable type of structure to do that, right? You can't just hey, can we roll back the SQL database?
Yeah, can we just roll back the whole chain to just fix this minor fuck up by one team who were a bit tired?
Yeah,
so that was fun.
Sporthy's dropped in here with a comment. Of course, it has to be fucking Juno related. Juno GovProp incoming to recover tokens from the contract.
Burn them.
The contract.
Burn them.
Funny.
Oh, Jesus.
Which contract? That's spicy. That's spicy. Which contract? Are you talking about Prop 16? Because that's.
I'm talking. I'm thinking of it. I'm just let that thing just die in the shadows. Just don't ever talk about it. Just let it be. Don't bring it up.
She's talking about you.
I realized just how insane that situation was last week, because I was supposed to talk about this last week, but I didn't because I'm an idiot and I forgot I'd done it. I went to.
Sporthy might entirely not be talking about that
No, she's
particular
talking about
thing,
you.
but,
She's talking about like, is there an incoming
she's talking
Juno
about our
gov
fuck
prop
up.
to unfuck your fuck up? That's
we've
Jesus
just
Christ.
gone. Oh yeah, it's probably like Prop 16 related. Yeah.
Do I have to explain?
No,
to
we've
guests
just-
or
we just fucked it up. It's probably, it is definitely a problem
We
exists
fucked it
between
up.
keyboard and chair, and the chair in question is probably this chair. The keyboard is this keyboard. So, that's fine.
All right.
It's
So
fine.
hang on. Let's real talk for a second here. I need to apologize to Sporthy because
you rugged Sporthy.
I did.
You-
We were
you pre-rugged.
supposed to. Yeah.
Today?
No. We were supposed to
Last
have
week.
Sporthy on last week or the week before. It was like the 8th or something like that.
Yeah.
And I done fucked
The
up.
8th was not last week, my guy.
No, it's like weeks ago. And
I was like, it's like the 15th today, and I was like, wait, that
no,
would
it's like
have
the
made it last week.
29th.
It's like April now.
Yeah, I fucked up, and
Cheers.
because I wasn't there, and you guys didn't remember, and so.
Oh, I like
Oh,
the little
what was that?
share of blame there.
What was that? That was a little share of blame.
That was a little. Are you a parent? Because that was definitely a little.
Hey,
You got-
I
In the
I
back.
put it in the group chat,
And
and I said that Sporty was booked in, and you guys didn't follow up. So
So Sporty just said in the chat, Null rugged me on International Women's Day hashtag IWD. I mean, I'm
So
ashamed on your behalf.
the whole reason that Sporthy was coming on was to talk about like the Women's Day and Cosmos, like women in Cosmos, and their validators. So I really fucked that up.
You fucking
Yeah.
multiple.
Well, Sporty, since you're in the chat, you should just probably come on next week.
Yeah.
And since the rest of us are in the organization here, the organization process, we can probably not screw it up.
I mean, come on right now if you want. DM me, I'll flick you the link. You're clearly fucking awake, so
That's just it. I mean, everybody just join in. You could have up to 8 people on a stream.
yeah. Like we've
So-
got a spare slot here in the screen. So.
Okay,
back-
so back to my point. My point was that, right? Okay,
PTSD. What?
so
I can't wait.
I was at this event, right? It was a scientific blockchain convention, essentially academics, right? An academic blockchain thing that happened to be in a city in the north of England. So I was like, sweet, I can get there. Awesome. Cycled over, like the full DJ and idiot I am, just like rocked up basically on the bike, locked up my bike, went in and was like, it's actually a bunch of academics talking about blockchain, and I'm just like an actual DJ, just sort of, here. And I don't know, it really struck me just how like fucking insane, like everything that's happened in the last 2 years, like all that kind of stuff is genuinely insane when you go and look at like where like researchers are, what researchers are talking about. There were all sorts of, I mean, I actually wrote down some of the paper abstracts. And I get that also, if you're doing an abstract, if you're doing a paper, it takes some time to get it published and whatnot. So there's a lead time on it. So stuff is going to be a little bit out of date, right? But we're talking about like there was a thing about blockchain, like using account, oops, just dropped a pen. Using like carbon accounting on the blockchain for the construction industry. That's kind of your wheelhouse, I guess now. Like Solidity smart contract upgrade patterns, which I feel is very relevant as a Cosmosm developer, not. There were, two very, very good abstracts from Swiss guys, kind of no surprise, who had this, one of them had this really interesting thing about basically platform volatility in lending protocols and how it was tied to inequality in token holding. And you could basically show that the more big bag, I mean, it's kind of intuitively makes sense, right? The more big bag holders you have, the more potential problems you have with any kind of DeFi protocol, but in particular lending protocols. And that was really, really interesting. And the HHI was correlated with the risk. And so the HHI, from memory, is also the one that people have been talking about in terms of decentralization of validator sets. So it's basically about concentration of deposits. There's something interesting there. versus, like the Gini coefficient, right, which is normally used or maybe most commonly used to show inequality. And there was some enterprise stuff. There was actually quite an interesting one about DAOs where they were basically like, basically nobody has really quantified how many DAOs are out there and who's being paid by them. And like, they just don't work like a normal employer. And there's this whole semi-hidden industry of people who are literally now being paid by DAOs that are just not in the employment statistics. And because everybody's like, nobody's being paid by a DAO, that's bullshit. But even in Ethereum, even in other ecosystems where DAO tooling is less sophisticated, there are actually people being paid by DAOs, and there is a path to employment as well by DAOs, which is very, very different to a path to employment in traditional employment. And so this person was basically like a labor economist, and they were sort of like, nobody's really studied what the career path is if you want to be employed by a DAO, like how you even get employed. Nobody has like just written up a paper saying like, well, maybe nobody has, but this was like, her thing was like, we actually need to kind of analyze how people end up employed by a DAO and how that employment works, because we just don't know unless you work in that sector. You just don't have any idea. There's no visibility of this currently, and yet it's clearly more and more people. So that was kind of interesting. I thought that was quite pertinent, I guess, to Cosmos, where everything is a DAO, like, because even all the chains are DAOs, right?
Why were they so focused on employment or compensation? What was that? Was it a compensation in crypto type of?
Well, so they were kind of like, look, if I was to say how many people work for startups in London, I could give you a pretty concrete number, right? Just as like a labor market number as part of the overall like census, or like an idea of how people work or what work people are doing in the economy, which is like, important from a policy perspective or political perspective. And they were like, look, I can't tell you how many people are full-time working for a DAO. Maybe it's none, whatever. That is funny. Null's just fucked off.
What? He's like, fuck it.
So for those listening on a podcast player, Null just got up, walked out of shot into an Airstream trailer, and closed the door.
It's pretty fucking random,
he's
right?
Gone. He's fully gone. I thought that was a fake background. I didn't realize that was actually an Airstream trailer in a garden in California. That's amazing.
There's like a Chick-fil-A in there or something.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit about how many people are working full-time for a DAO? I don't understand why that's a yardstick at all. Like, who cares? What is
well,
that?
I think because this is academic research, isn't it? So like, you might do like any emerging market and say like, oh, policymakers consider this to be unimportant, but we've done some research that has shown that there are, like maybe you do something on like informal employees in the economy. Like it would be, you could see like somebody doing a research paper as an economist on how many people work in the gig economy in London, right? That would be a valid research paper to say, hey, policymakers think it's not that many people, but it's actually loads of people, and here's the evidence. So I think it's that kind of context where I think a lot of people who aren't in the space are like, DAOs, yeah, all right. And this person is basically being like, yeah, scoff all you like, but we actually just don't know the number, and we don't really have a good way of finding out yet. And maybe it's an intractable problem, but I think it's a problem that, there's a whole bunch of things that are very different, like stability and pay, path to employment. And there's really no methodology for talking about it, essentially. And as labor economists, we essentially need to come up with that methodology for describing how labor works in this new paradigm, where you can work a long time for free and they get paid retroactively, and all sorts of other things which are quite not unique in the scope of all employment, but quite unique in terms of like general modern employment within a regulated economy. So I thought that was quite an interesting one. And then there was a really good talk on the 4 types of stablecoins and the various systematic risks associated with them.
Wait, there's 4 types of stablecoins?
They categorize them as 4 main types, right? Where there's kind of exogenous, endogenous, so like internal and external stability mechanism, and then centralized versus decentralized. And they basically did a bunch of simulations on types of stable coins with those characteristics, like fed into a statistical model to see what would happen to them when faced with essentially like things like a bank run, essentially, or like a demand side pressure or a supply side. Well, actually, it wouldn't be supply side, it would be demand side pressure, and a variety of other things. And what they found, so an example.
Wait, let me guess. The centralized one was like the most stable.
The exogenous centralized was the most stable. Yes.
Of course.
Of course. Why wouldn't it be?
And surprise, surprise.
Right.
Right, but the decentralized ones weren't the most unstable. The most unstable was the centralized endogenous, for which their market example was Terra, and Terra collapsed in exactly the same way their model predicted.
Oh yeah, that's right. You showed me that, right?
I think I shared in the group chat. I shared a graph where it just shows like supply side pressure, and it shows I think Tether reacting to a demand side pressure, and it kind of does a really weird wiggle, but it does eventually revert to the mean given sui generis type situations where there's not additional pressures, and whereas like UST is just wham, it just like once it pushed past the point, it does collapse. Now there is also
I feel like I don't need to point this out, but I recognize that without a meme graph.
yes, but of course the point of academic research is to prove it repeatedly that if you have a statistical model that you can feed inputs in within the range of any hypothetical stablecoin there, and it will collapse. Which
collapse of all stablecoins.
Since you want somebody to say it, your degen tendencies are smarter than these academics. We all understand that. We all agree. We all agree. Everybody on this, we all agree. Okay, I know that's what you want to hear before we can move on. We're in.
Yeah. So Null is smarter than the academics.
Yes.
Well done,
especially in
Null.
these degen strategies. Thumbs up, right? Okay. All right. Let's move on.
So basically, the problem with the centralized ones is there's a higher risk of a bank run. So that's why the exogenous one, where there is external backing, the fact that there is external backing, just the same as there is in a kind of traditional sort of central bank scenario, can mitigate the risk of a bank run essentially. Whereas the endogenous one, where it's basically just collateralized by another fucking degen crypto coin or whatever, the centralization works against stability. But then there's some interesting stuff that like I didn't fully understand, to be honest, around there were some other examples, like obviously DAI, right, but also synthetics and stuff, where they were giving examples of how you can build additional incentive mechanisms using over collateralization in a decentralized model. The problem with the decentralized model is basically in all of their modeling, they were kind of like, you just need to over collateralize to a point that it begs the question, why bother? Other than the fact it is crypto versus a traditional, central bank.
So,
asset, because it has to be so over collateralized. And the caveat underneath all of this is, of course, if you smash it with a big enough crisis, almost everything depegs, almost everything collapses, because there is a tipping point where a complex system cannot regain equilibrium, right? But they were modeling like a inbound impact, an outbound impact, and then a total catastrophe, and then the catastrophe every time.
But it's it's partially due to like a loss of confidence too, right?
Yeah,
it's not like,
I mean, there's obviously a point where essentially confidence collapses to the point the thing hits zero anyway, right? Which is, if you're a government with a central currency, there is a way of coming back from that, but there is no way of coming back from that with something that is relying on a trustless system. So that was kind of interesting.
For the viewers, can you explain the difference between androgynous and the other thing that you've been saying?
So basically, androgynous was the way David Bowie presented during the Ziggy Stardust era of his career, and to some extent the Thin White Duke era, when he was moving into the Berlin years. What was the question?
The difference between androgynous and the other word that you've been saying.
Okay, so endogenous and exogenous is basically just about how the thing is collateralized, is my understanding. So one of them is kind of external from the crypto ecosystem, and one of them is internal. But I guess there's degrees of that, aren't there? Because there's like literally collateralized by your own fucking coin, and then there's collateralized by a basket of coins. So I think the distinction on, say, synthetics, is my understanding anyway of synthetics, is it's collateralized by a basket of things, as well as being decentralized and is
synthetics are collateralized by nothing. It's just hopes and dreams.
Well, other crypto coins, right?
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant like synthetic representations of, like,
with an X,
Tesla.
No, with an X. It's a brand.
Yeah, okay. Before we get too far down the old podcast line today. I just want to point out that you have neglected to share with us a passage from your Twitter handbook of random
I thought we moved
Twitters.
On from that shit.
Really? Did we ditch that? Did we?
Like
when did we ditch that?
Like a month ago.
No, good point. Good point. No, Noel's asked.
7 cities ago for you.
Was I not here?
Okay.
Here we go.
Wow. Okay, so I've landed on a page which it just has a picture of what I presume is Drill there with the sunglasses in Master Chief's armor.
Oh.
The title of the page and the section of the book is Halo, and it says, "My Christ, I am invigorated. Using my new official Old Spice Dr. Pepper Halo 3 exfoliating forehead wax. This is God. This feeling is God."
So I'm with Usurper. Let's burn that book.
You just brought it back. What the fuck?
The following tweet is: "There's a rumor that Master Chief will take off his mask and reveal that he's the BTK killer. Do not do this. It would be disrespectful to the Halo."
That's better.
Amazing. So,
so back to the notice.
The final funny thing that happened at this conference, right, was that somebody did an NFTs talk where they were talking about social impact and sustainable finance NFTs, and you're just like instant eye roll, right? And my favorite thing. But before, I was just sat there as somebody who's worked as a data engineer. I was like, I just don't understand why any of these use cases would just not be a database. Like, you don't need NFTs, you don't need the blockchain. And the crown jewel of the things that they, and I don't mean to just bash on this academic, right? Because I think they mean well, but the kind of like the example they gave was the WWF, not the wrestling, Tombstone, no way. But the pandas, the WWF organization, the ecology charity, their NFTs, which were launched earlier this year. And the fun thing about that is that I don't think the academic mentioned this, but of course that launch was so botched and so controversial that it came up in the British Parliament, because so it's kind of complicated. This is like obviously the biggest wildlife charity in the world. I think the biggest. The patron of the charity is Prince, now King Charles, right? So although they're like these fucking hippies, basically, and academics who work on ecology restoration, they have this weird sort of connection with the British aristocracy and the British like upper class. Like it's kind of like they've been grandfathered in, right? And those people care about them for whatever reason. They're like, Green Party scum, Greenpeace scum. Oh, but WWF are respectable people who wear shirts and ties and care about the loss of chaffinches from regional woodlands. Ha ha. I don't know, but pretend to understand it. But there is some acceptance of their cause in the British establishment, right? And so the fact that they just issued NFTs, it was apparently this really this was in all the papers in the UK anyway. It had not been signed off by everybody, right? Shall we say? And it got to the point that people were asking questions in Parliament, being like, "What are these crypto NFTs from establishments that we all know and trust?" And it got completely out of hand, and the whole project was pulled because they were like, "This is a total disaster." So yeah, that was kind of funny because I was like, "Oh, they're using an example that was literally in the papers as a massive clusterfuck, and a real public catastrophe."
It's still a stupid.
It's such a fine line between stupid and clever.
Yeah,
it's
just
clever,
a little turnabout.
It's a little turnabout.
It's just a little it's like a fine line. It's just so yeah. So I was like, you may have a point, but that's probably not the example to use. Was my conclusion on that. So
I can't buy a Cross River Gorilla for 340 USDC though. There's still some available. How are these still available? 221.
Because I think they got launched, and then the whole thing turned into a clusterfuck, and so they pulled their involvement. But I think they were already out in the wild, as it were. They'd already rewilded those NFTs.
They're out there.
Yeah.
These looking for a kangaroo, so I can send it to Noel.
That's the one.
In the wild.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So it's like, but I think the conclusion from this though is like there was a lot of stuff where it just felt like literally the daily stupidity and degeneracy that we call our lives now is quite a long way ahead of where people outside of the space think.
Is that good or
the
bad?
Space is.
Better or worse?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. But like, it was one of those, like in the break, I was talking to somebody and they were like, oh, what are you researching? I was like, I'm actually just kind of came along to have a look. Like, I mainly work in the Cosmos ecosystem. And they're like, oh, what's that? And I'm like, it's pretty fucking small market cap compared to Ethereum, but some funny things have happened. And they were like, well, yeah, but everything's presumably like really small fry. And I was like, I don't know, man. We had a governance dispute over $120 million last year, which was resolved with a smart contract. And they were like, $120 million. I was like, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It was all a bit of a blur because it was quite stressful, as you can imagine. And they were like, really? And I was like, yeah, I mean, this is like, this stuff seems to happen all the time.
We just burned it. What are you doing?
Yeah.
What did you do last year? Yeah, we lit it on fire in front of their eyes.
It was just fucking set it on fire. No big deal.
We just said, fuck you. That was it.
Exactly. Like, and they were just like, oh, funny you didn't hear about that. And it's like, no.
Didn't you?
No, you didn't. You didn't. I mean, you could have done. It was on CoinDesk. We got a very bad write-up, as I recall, for the whole experience.
I think my attorneys had a blog post on it.
Do you know what? It's like, at the risk of being like Game of Nose, the legal advice podcast. Our lawyers sent us a quite interesting article on the legal status of DAOs in the United Kingdom the other day, because obviously they helped us with some of the thinking around the HAL DAO and whatnot. And there has recently actually been a consultation with businesses on their opinions on essentially how DAO should be treated moving forward. And they're starting to publish some like preliminary information on how DAOs will be sort of treated moving forward. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't think they've got it right. Of course, nothing's ever going to be right. But
are people required to like periodically ask, is this a DAO?
That is actually the first line in the recommendation position piece. It has the meme.
Is this a DAO?
It has the meme.
Yeah, it says this has been contributed by an industry partner. Envoy Labs have contributed this to our consultation. Yeah, no, sadly not. But yeah, I think the thing that that I guess came out of all of that was just the extent to which, like, going back to even the academics, right, who are, I guess, presumably thinking about this stuff a lot. Either they're very, very deep in the detail on one thing, or they are still at quite like a high level of like, hypotheticals of what you can do with this thing.
Right.
And there's like, they were talking about use case where they're like, maybe in 2 years we'll see something. And I just was thinking, you could write that in Cosmwasm in a weekend, like if you wanted to. It's just there's no money in it, so why would you do that? Like,
this idea that you've come up with, we've already shit down the drain because it makes nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep going. Like we're past that. We've already realized that makes nothing. So keep going.
Yeah, we're already at a point where you can design, develop, and deploy an economic system in a weekend,
right?
If you want to. It's just that your idea is bad.
Tried it.
That's why nobody's done it.
Yeah, exactly.
And in fact, actually, somebody probably already has done it in Cosmos, and you just don't know about it because you guys are all looking at Ethereum, because you actually don't know all that much about the crypto space. And to be fair, like, look, we don't know everything that happens in the Cosmos. Yeah. Like, we can't keep track of everything that happens in the Cosmos. So, like, I mean, as a validator company, we're only in 2 ecos, and I already find it exhausting to keep track of what's happening in each one. So, like, I understand, but it does remind me, I guess, like, of how I think we just sort of take it for granted. Like, we just like, this is just what life is like, all this insane bullshit all the time, and it's just like, hey, this is normal. And then you take a step back and you look at people whose job is to analyze things professionally and write like a measured take on what is actually happening for consumption by people in 50 years time. Mm-hmm. And you're like, yeah, okay. Yeah. We are A, super early, and B, this stuff is super insane. Like, it's
That's some quality analysis.
Yeah. I mean, like, you don't need to go to an academic conference to be like, we're early and this stuff is mental. Obviously, that's kind of a given. But like, again, like, and sadly, the person doing the DAO stuff was actually calling in. Otherwise, I would have been like, hey, do you know DAO? Because there's like payroll stuff coming in 2.1, like in 2 weeks' time. You should just like check it out. Oh my god, you can just like look at which wallets are doing it. Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, so related, unrelated. DAO V2 has launched.
2.1.
2.1. The DAO has been like upgraded to that. So, if you run a DAO, go ahead and fucking YOLO.
That's awesome.
I heard in the actually, no, I won't say that.
You what?
Yeah. So Partial Maxter said in the chat, the paper on how early we are will be released too late. I believe.
That's fucking awesome.
I actually submitted an abstract brief for the 2025 edition of the Journal of the British Blockchain Association for We Are Early, a study in earliness. And we'll see how it goes. They didn't seem to like it. I don't know.
A study in earliness.
A study in earliness.
The great thing about
I'm not a great comedy writer. If I was, I wouldn't be here.
The great news about being too early is things like DAO get overlooked because in 4 years from now, somebody releases on a different chain 1/10 of the functionality that exists today, and totally blows up because it was the right release at the right time, and it was the right like those things have to align for that success to happen. And
there's that saying, isn't there? Like, there's nothing more frustrating than being than being 5 minutes too late, or being a year too late, other than being 5 years too early. Something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
Something, I don't know. Somebody might know the exact quote. I've probably butchered it, but yeah, it's kind of unclear at this point. Which one we are.
Also related. We're getting requests for the stickers, Usurper, from the WAGG.
Yeah, I think. I mean, we have a ton, and we have them on like 3 or 4 continents, right? Like we're pretty good on.
If people want them in Europe, Twitter, and I'll send them.
Don't do that. Don't just send.
Don't do that.
Send an email to like, I want a fucking sticker at bigballsblockchain.com, and we'll figure it out, and we will make it happen. With
your address and private key.
Physical address, mnemonic, exactly. I need both those things.
Just send your mnemonic, and we'll get it. We'll make it happen for you.
We will make it happen. We have tons of good stickers, and we have been talking about merch for a long time. We should actually come up with something.
I feel like
I've said it before. I'll say it again. The baby grow has been a staple. It's a really good size if you have an underweight baby.
That for people in the US, that's a onesie.
if you have an underweight baby.
Well, but if you had a normal weight baby, you could just. I mean, and to be fair, it looks like it's scaling with the child. Like
if you had an overweight baby, you could use it for socks.
He's no longer underweight, but it still fits. It was one of the only ones that did fit when he was underweight.
I love it.
So.
Has the babies developed the thickness?
Yeah, they get really chunky quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Would be my review. My review of babies.
Would be my review. Listen, little man.
7 out of 10 would baby again. I don't know. I only really
my review of babies get chunky real quick.
Get chunky.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Chunkier than you think. Chunkier than you think. You get a bit more sleep than you think, but the grind of not quite getting enough sleep is very long.
Yeah, it's fun like the first month, right? Then you're like, holy shit, this is gonna go on.
This is life now. This is just life now.
When do they sleep through the night?
Yeah, you're kind of just like, oh yeah. Like the thing that really gets me is like you keep talking to people and you're just like, yeah, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever. The number keeps going up, and you're just like, yeah, at some point though, and people are just like, not really. Yeah. You're like,
two
good,
years,
excellent.
No, not that. Listen, sleep training, like we were ridiculously structured on sleep training. That was really my wife. So and sleep training is a real thing. Like that term, like look it up and like people have there's a lot of different
I've already, believe me, I've read a book now.
It's a real thing.
Like the shit needs to happen.
You have to train
the second you can.
Like you think like kids like realize how to sleep. They don't. Like you really need to be able to do that. And he's still young. Like it doesn't matter. This is later. But later, because they'll like move forward and they'll regress, right? Because they're like, oh, we're past this. Like, you can sleep for 5 hours, and then next thing you know, you have like 3 weeks of like him up every 2 hours just to piss you off, right? Like there's at some point
that was basically last night.
You're gonna have good nights and bad nights, right?
What was the hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm just gonna let you know I'm still here.
Like, were you getting comfortable?
Do you know what the funny thing is, Frey? Is that you look decidedly less fucked right now than what you have during like several other like blockchain related events.
Well, I think it's because there is a bunch of stuff where essentially as soon as the baby arrived, I had to just be like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to do it anymore because it's fucking, I don't know how to explain. I don't know how to explain it really. I'm a
genius. You're fucking wankers. You'll never see me again.
It's basically just that. Like, it comes to a point where you're just like, I can only do what I can do, man, and I'm not going to do that other shit anymore. So I'm just going to try and take it a bit easier.
Yes.
Be editing this episode for a fucking.
So for those listening, every time we press one of the soundboard things, it basically causes like a break in the timeline or something like that. So Usurper has to then go and edit.
It's like
back in the fucking thing that we just did.
I have 5 minutes less with my children every time that you hit that button. And you can hit it again.
So the fact that I kept hitting the tombstone button earlier was very welcome, like 100% welcome in the grander scheme of things. I feel bad about that now. I'm sorry, man. That was not cool. That was not cool.
It's all good.
So
I don't feel bad at all. Fuck your time.
No regrets, nothing. That's the Australian way. I mean, to be fair, it's probably actually the British way as well, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's just like we actually regret nothing, but we just sort of pretend. We just like sort of. There's just like a sense of malaise, of depression,
people
of sadness
on a boat to a different continent for stealing bread. You asshole.
Is that what it was? Stealing bread?
And sheep rustling, stuff like that. It was
stealing bread.
It's pretty bad.
Or like, looking at
in hindsight, probably the right call.
Countess wrong or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, look,
lucrative. Steal a loaf of bread, get a plot.
I'm not an academic of that period of British history, so I couldn't tell you exactly what the many pressures were that led to the conclusion that those were good policies. But if I had to put my finger in the air, I would imagine it is the perpetuation of the same ruling class that took control of the country in 1066, essentially, and wished to perpetuate their rule forever. Historians of English history prove me wrong. Anyway.
Okay.
Historians of English history.
It's whatever. Welcome to Game of Nodes, a weekly podcast
English historian,
land rights and land use in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Presented to you by independent validator teams and class warriors.
Oh shit.
Well, there is an interesting sense, right, in which America, there's a lot of land to go around, right, and you have a lot of problems. And you did fuck the Native Americans out of the good land. That was a thing. Mm-hmm. But there is like this sense in which you can still just like get usable land to do stuff on. Whereas like in the UK, there's so little land that it still is the case that if you own the land, you just in a very real sense just own what's going on. Like the biggest landowners are still the aristocracy. It's just like astonishing to me. Like it's like this big thing we just don't really talk about, how like land rights. Well, I mean, maybe we do talk about it. I feel like we don't. We just don't talk about how like we're just still the same country we've been for like 500 years, because every time there's a change in like the wind, the people who have always been in charge just grandfather in the new people and just continue as before. And maybe that's the same in every political system. I guess there's there's never revolution, really, only evolution, unless you're the French and you guillotine everybody, which, gotta say,
it might be the move.
Hey, maybe that's the universe brain move. I mean, like, you got to hand it to the Bolsheviks, right? They got the Tsar. They were like, our position is tenuous. Maybe we're going to be in a position where we want to trade them back. We might, there might be some political deal, which means they're taken back or whatever. They just shot them. Just take that shit off the table. Just end the bloodline.
I mean,
it's pretty brutal.
I mean, in some cases, it probably makes a lot of sense. I mean, that used to be the way, right? You wanted to stop a bloodline, you just fucking kill everyone.
You stopped it.
Yeah, I think that's maybe in my head a little bit because I rewatched June at the weekend. Because
you rewatched June because the new one's coming out soon.
Partly the reason, but also because I watched like a short documentary on how they did the sound design for it and like the various techniques and stuff, and it was very interesting. Anyway, I was just like, it was a really good soundtrack. I want to hear it again. So I watched the film, and it kind of reminded me like
that's the most bizarre reason I've ever heard for rewatching a film. It's like, I heard something about the fucking film track. I better rewatch that just to verify.
It's a great fucking soundtrack. I like.
Don't trust, verify.
Mate, I'm literally a music journalist. Of course I like music. Of course I like soundtracks. Anyway, whatever. The point is, the thing that struck me on this rewatch is how like when the Harkonnens, okay, spoilers, when the Harkonnens come in and fuck everything up, how it literally is like that is exactly how the destruction of a royal house in, say, like European antiquity would have been. It's just like, no, you lost, so everything's fucked now. We're going to kill all the peasants. We're going to kill all your soldiers. We're going to kill all your retainers. We're going to burn down everything. Those really expensive trees you had, we're going to burn them down. We actually quite like those trees, but we're going to burn them down anyway, just out of fucking principle. And you're like, oh gosh, it seems a bit severe. And then you're like, yeah, the Romans like salted the earth at Carthage after the Second Punic War, right? Okay. So for those, I've just obviously just stopped them in kind of, yeah. So for those, again, listening later, Ben Davis, the comment was, this is dangerously like the Master and Commander shit. Well played. You are correct.
which plagued the first 6 months of Game of Nodes.
It's a great film. And you know how long ago that was? Well, okay, that was like 6 months ago, but it was a long time ago. We've had a lot of episodes of this podcast now. Somebody at some point, there's going to be an academic. There's going to be an academic tracking the social history of the blockchain ecosystem in Cosmos via the medium of the podcast Game of Nodes. It's going to come full circle, my friend. They're going to find this episode and they're going to go, "Ooh, that's a bit of a shame. They're being nasty about people like me." And
all that's going to come out of that study, the only thing that'll come out of that study is the definitive list
of tombstones.
That's the
one. I mean, that would be a great academic paper, to be fair.
The only Cosmos piece we've had in this.
To be fair to that researcher, and if you are listening in the future, we have no problem with academics. Obviously, you are, as far as I can tell, lovely, lovely people. Sorry if there was any indication to the contrary during this podcast. It's been a long winter, and we don't just mean the crypto winter. It's been a long, cold, dark winter, more generally, in the Northern Hemisphere. Gosh, it has.
Oh my goodness!
Thank goodness we're nearly in April when it finally starts to get a bit light.
God. I'm gonna go from winter in the States to winter in Australia.
You are, yeah, you're going right, yeah.
Although
all I've seen is winter for like the last fucking year.
Mate, no, your winter is not like the winter in the north of England.
It's not like
the winter that's behind you is sunshine, right? We don't get fucking sunshine for 6 months.
This is the only fucking sunshine I have seen in like 9 months.
Get out of here.
9 months. You live in Australia. That is not plausible or correct. We can literally, okay, if we had enough viewers, if we were like one of those, those big gamer channels with like loads and loads of viewers on YouTube, I'd be like, guys, go back and clip a clip of when Noel was in the sunshine from the last year. Go show me. And then people would just like send in hundreds of clips on YouTube Shorts, mocking you.
Just laughing at you.
That's
what an asshole. He's been in the sun the whole year.
What an asshole. Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, to be fair, we don't need any part of that. The drama associated with those YouTubers seems to be like Although a lot of it they do bring on themselves, as far as I can tell. I'm not an expert on it.
I think that's what drives listeners, right? And it's what kind of like it's built around that.
Yeah, I vaguely followed like a hitman speedrunner niche, you would think, but with quite a lot of followers. And I haven't obviously had the time in the last 6 months really to watch any shit. And so I just saw their name came up the other day, and it was, of course, in like a scandal, like a Cancelgate type thing, where they had been doing a stream and they just like flicked between tabs, and there was just like, and it was something really actually quite really bad, like super unpleasant. It was like AI generated porn of colleague streamers or something. Like, yeah, it was like really actually like, massive breach of trust, bad stuff. And I was like, oh gosh, stop paying attention to the internet for 5 minutes, and that's what happens. Yeah, it's like, well, I guess I won't be enjoying that content when I finally get a chance to watch YouTube again, whenever that is.
Ben Davis with the only comments in the last half an hour. The chain halt helped with your viewership.
That's true.
I think our biggest episode by viewers was the Juno chain
the restart.
Halt.
No, it was the restart.
Yeah.
The restart, which never happened. It was just the circle.
Which, ironically, it was a rug pull, wasn't it? Because we promised a chain gets revived or your money back, and no chain was revived,
and a lot of money was returned.
A lot of money, as I recall. It was very financially ruinous for the whole endeavor. That was the one where we just called up all of the Dowdow lot in Portland, wasn't it? And they were just all in a big house hanging out, and they just randomly joined throughout the whole thing. Was
that in Portland?
I think so. I
would have thought it would have been in like San Fran or something.
You know what? There is something a little bit like this is crazy, right? I feel like genuinely, like the period of time that Juno, for example, or any of the main Cosmos chains, because like for me, Juno and Stargazer launched in the same month, so it's all a bit jumbled for me. But like I genuinely feel like it's only been like less than 2 years, and it feels like 1,000. It does feel like 5 or 6 years of my life. Like the compaction of time. It's like, general relativity. The closer you get to the speed of light, as soon as you drop out from that, you're like, 100 years have passed, I do feel like there's an element of that where I was just like, I was thinking about like the number of people that have joined and exited the project, or validators or applications or anything like that are not even around anymore. Is like pretty crazy. Like,
has it? It doesn't seem like it's been that much of a, well, maybe in Juno, but it doesn't seem like it's been that much of a flux in Juno. But it could be.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends. I guess it depends which contingent of people you mean. Maybe not validators so much as like there's a lot of people who I guess I talk to on a daily basis or worked with maybe over the past couple of years who just not even, in some cases, not even in crypto anymore. Be that from market pressures, be that from other things, be that things going wrong.
Can't blame for that.
Right. But I don't know. It does feel like a long time and a lot of churn whenever I kind of reflect on that. Yeah, it does.
Are there any comments on the old AIB?
I don't really know the whole story there. It sounded like they were. So the way I understand it, which I don't,
Well, say first, Ben Davis asked, care to risk a hot take on AIB bridging a lawsuit against an ex-employee who wanted to work on a fork? I don't know the details, so I don't know if that's 100% correct. But anyone?
So, as I understand it, okay, allow me to choose my words very carefully. Mm-hmm. As I understand it, allegedly, AIB has brought a lawsuit in New York against the former employee who first made a Twitter post about Denis Fedayev's desire to work on something that he was not technically allowed to in his contract, although it was open source. It was open source, but he was not technically allowed to fork it and work on it as a result of his previous employment contract with AIB.
Meaning he was a full-time employee or an employee under contract.
He was an ex-employee, I think, but still bound by the same employment contract.
Oh, so he had a non-compete or some sort of structure.
Yeah, something like that. So he had, I think he had asked to say to work on the open source. software.
But he was no longer. Are you sure he's not? He was not an employee.
I don't think he was an employee anymore. No.
Oh,
but like, you quite often have, it's very, very common for corporate contracting. You have a 6 or 12 month non-compete on any clause you sign.
Well, here in the US, they're not enforceable.
Yeah. I mean, they're not particularly enforceable in the UK either, but you have to sign them. You sign it, you move on. Anyway, but the thing is, like, nobody ever tries to enforce them. That's the thing. Like, literally nobody ever does.
Oh, I got sued for that. I mean, yeah,
oh,
absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. Like they can try to be enforceable. I mean, here in the U.S., it might be different elsewhere, but the core of it is you cannot stop someone from trying to earn to provide for him or herself or their family. So as long as it's not if you're creating competition, as long as you're not stealing IP. As long as if you are creating a more competitive environment and you are learning what you learned at company A to go create or start or even go to company B to create competition, there's no court here that would stop to do that unless you're stealing things. If you're stealing IP and you're saying, hey, I'm taking this and I'm going to go somewhere else, I'm going to go recreate this with this kind of like intellectual property, that you can absolutely get sued. I mean, you can look at, there's tons of fucking cases around.
Yeah, I could imagine that would be the case.
Yeah, like or if you're stealing customers. The other thing is, well, two things. One is if you steal customers, like I have a good relationship with customer A, I'm going to go to company B, I'm going to go recruit this customer. The courts do not like that because then you're taking money out, you're taking basically food out of somebody else's mouth because of a relationship. That's not cool. And the other thing is stealing employees. Employees are incredibly hard to hold on to. And so if you are like underhanded recruiting somebody, that is also something that you could say. That is very easy. But if you say, hey, I learned this stuff at company A, I'm going to go start my own thing, or I'm going to company B, I'm going to use what I learned, I'm going to go compete against company A, nobody will go against that. Like that is
yeah, that's kind of my understanding here as well. Like if you literally you contract with a company via, say, a third party, and then you cease working for the third party, and then you approach the other company to go contract, that is very much enforceable. Yes. Anything other than that kind of level of like directly, I'm going to stop working for you and go to them directly, is essentially unenforceable, is my understanding, because it's just like normal business practice, as long as it's not taking the piss, I believe is the legal term. But yeah, in this case,
and if the source is open source, meaning like an organization has said, hey, we are giving this back. And I'm not sure what license that's under, but assuming that company B or wherever this person left to, and they're not violating the agreement of how they are utilizing that source, I'm not sure what argument is here, other than unless there's other intellectual property that person is taking to say, hey, this is something I learned that is uniquely covered under IP, whether that be customers or whether that be something else that can be enforceable in some sort of way. But so I didn't really. I mean, AIB's approach and like, hey, we got to stand up and everything else. I mean, honestly, usually you would not go public with that type of thing. Like if you're going to sue an ex-employee because you think there's an issue there, you're not like going to Twitter with it. But I don't know.
Yeah, as I suspected, it's Apache 2.0 is the license.
Okay.
on Starport Ignite.
It just means what does that mean? They can't take that source and they can't resell it, right? That's basically what it is. They can't create a product that's resold.
I think you can resell it commercially as much as you like. I think you just have to reprint the same license. I think that's
so somebody else
could
fork that. Whatever you create off that has to be public. Number one, right? I think, and then somebody else can fork you and do whatever, right? Like it's basically the idea.
Yeah, so the Apache license is a permissive. I'm going to read the Wikipedia here. The Apache license is a permissive free software license written by the Apache Software Foundation. It allows the users to use the software for any purpose, to distribute it, modify it, distributed and modified versions of the software under any terms of the license without concern for royalties. It does not require derivative works to be distributed using the same license.
Okay.
It requires application of the same license to all unmodified parts. In every license file, original copyright, patent, trademark, and attribution notices must be preserved. If a notice file is included as any part of a distribution of the original work, the derivative works must include a readable copy of those notices within a notice file. But these do not modify the license. and there can be no patent litigation after the fact unless explicitly stated otherwise. Any contributions submitted by a licensee to a licensor will be under the terms of the license without any terms and conditions. Yeah. So essentially, yeah, it's just it's a relatively straightforward open source license with some sensible guardrails around it that is over and above the MIT license. But you might think about it as like, for the purposes of, can you make it commercial? Can you work on it? Is it permissive?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be hugely different from something as permissive as the MIT license would be.
Right. And I know AIB also talked about some sort of like disparagement or something else against themselves or whatever else. Like
I think the defamation was the thing that they were upset about.
That's a real concern. And if they think that like whatever's being said is number one, if they can prove that it's untruthful and they can prove that it's actually and they can claim some sort of damage associated with that, I mean, which I think would be really difficult in Web3, but whatever. But if you're proving to say, hey, this is our growth in terms of stakers, and we have X, Y, Z, and it's going lower than that, and so therefore you're costing us money, like that's a real number, and a court might hear that. But I think getting to that point is, that seems like a kind of a stretch to get to a point where you're gonna get a jury to understand what the fuck is going on here. But,
I think importantly, like one of the notes is that it was not taken like very well by the community, I guess.
Doesn't matter.
In general. Yeah, I mean, it's just it's interesting, like, to watch the whole saga play out over time, and I mean, it's just they don't seem to have like a lot of support at all across like the community.
I mean, again, that doesn't really matter. Like it really
in the court of law, it doesn't matter, but it's interesting to watch from like as a bystander perspective.
Yeah, but I think like a personal take would be like, if somebody wants to kind of bait me into, obviously this I don't have any. I think you should just kind of let devs work on open source software. That's obviously my opinion. Like, it's a kind of no skin off my nose approach. Like the Barbara Streisand effect thing. Where you try and bury the evidence of the big mansion, and everybody just posts pictures of it on the internet. Like, it's not like, I'm obviously not like, one of the things about British law I like the least is defamation law, because it's primarily designed to protect the interests of a moneyed upper class who have more money than anybody else. And like, this seems like, any big company obviously has more money and more resources and more lawyers than any individual employee.
Sure.
This is why we have unions, right? But this is the extent to which AIB must have more money than anybody that could stand up to them is probably disproportionate to a ridiculous degree. Like, even if you had a union, even if you had some other body that you could sort of look to for arbitration, I doubt that they could stand up to anything that could be thrown at you.
Yeah.
So it is like really something where it's so uneven always is going to stick in your craw, I think, is the first observation. Without really taking a side on it, I just think like whenever it's just somebody punching down, it's just a bad look. It's just my opinion.
Yeah,
not an opinion of our company, not opinion of anything else, certainly not opinion. That's just a personal observation. I think punching down generally looks bad. And the second thing is just, we're trying to get people to come and build in this ecosystem. And what you see time and time again is that like specifics of an issue don't tend to matter so much as the optics of an issue. And the optics of this issue, and this is not my personal issue. This is what other people have said to me. This is what people have, because people have asked us to talk about this on Game of Nodes, and I was a bit like, but like the overall impression I think that people have, by and by, could be wrong. This is just the take that I've been given by other people, is that this is basically an organization that is supposed to be a leader in the cosmos suing a dev.
Yeah. I mean, this is also a bear market issue, right? If the bull is going on and they're making a shitload of fucking money and all this type of stuff, I think that they kind of let this slide, or they find to do it in a way that's not as visible or something. But I agree. Like this, it's a bit petty for an organization, and the real question of how much actual damages are they feeling because of this? I think is probably more in marketing terms. It's not necessarily in terms of
I think the damages they're looking for is like $150,000. And I'm like,
why even bother? Honestly,
you're doing more reputational damage by
Seriously,
taking this lawsuit
like,
than,
who the fuck is looking at this?
anything that happened before
Totally.
that.
Like, why would you look at
their
this?
their one tweet was like more fucking reputational damage than
easily.
the outfall of them fucking doing work is.
Right.
Allegedly or whatever, you know.
Totally agree. Like, why?
Yeah, or whatever, allegedly and stuff.
Like, there has to be I mean, like, on any sort of legal movement, you have to look at it and say, what is the ROI in this type of structure, right? Like, are we really making anything? And anybody who's
can I just observe to the listeners, this is why Usurper is like low-key the smartest guy here, is that we're all just like, this is a complicated issue. And it's like, but what is the ROI on this legal move?
But anybody's been
like, wow.
if you've been in the Cosmos for 10 fucking minutes, right? You would know this is not the right move, right? Like, you would look at it and say, what's the ROI on, like, are we actually, so what are we making a statement? We're going to increase our worth because of getting the community all fucking pissed at us about suing in this type of situation? Or you just say, let's just see if we can go to arbitration. Let's see if we can maybe make some things to say that this does not go forward if they really feel there's damages here. But they go after $150,000. Like, what are you doing? Like, that doesn't make any sense, especially at that size, right? That's nuts. Like, I
think that's the problem. Is it's like life ruining money to the dev, and it's like it's chicken feed to a large organization them. So it's just, again, it's back to the punching down thing. You're just like, what are you trying to achieve other than, you know, literally on this podcast, you know, all three of us are looking at that being like, I don't want to have to pay $150,000 because somebody decides they don't like my opinion on the internet, which is fucking ridiculous. That is literally you know what that is? That is, okay, just my opinion, but it's childish.
Yeah.
Is what it is. It comes off as childish, and it is toxic to attracting devs to the ecosystem, which, given that the SDK, I go on about it, is not an ergonomic product at the moment. And obviously there are some very, very clever, very, very smart, very, very determined people who are currently working on modularizing it and doing lots of things that are going to make it more accessible for devs. And, you know, that's coming in SDK 46, SDK 47, SDK 48. You know, I'm kind of wired into some of those conversations. And like, I do appreciate there is some determined efforts to make the stuff more approachable to new developers, but you also need a pipeline of new developers to stick the course and actually see that to the end.
Yeah.
And you just look at this and you're just like, fuck, why bother? There are people Near will throw money at you to come in their ecosystem.
Exactly.
Aptos will throw money at you to come in their ecosystem. Why would you do this? Hey, come work in our ecosystem and maybe get sued.
So fucking short-sighted, right? So fucking short-sighted. And not even like, there's not even like, it's not short-sighted for like millions, right? It's short-sighted for literally, to them, I would assume, incremental cash, right? And you're and like, how would you not read the fucking room? That's just like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But whether they're right or wrong, like, I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm really not. That in a legal system, that doesn't make any, like, that's only part of the truth, is if they're right or wrong. Even if they're right, is it worth it? Like, is this in the long term the right thing? And is this in the right thing and we've talked about this on this fucking show more times, a rising tide raises all ships, right? And so, to your point, Frey, like, if you're shitting on this whole ecosystem, or you're trying to say, hey, this is dev hostile type of thing, and even if people don't read it, it's still news, right? It's end up on CoinDesk or some stupid shit, right? So, like, how do you not look at that and say, this is stupid? Like, what are we doing? Like, you're in a bad position, even if you're right, even if they're right. I'm not saying they're right, but even if they are right and they think that this is a bad situation and like they're getting fucked here, you got to look at the bigger picture to say, we're getting fucked, but what solution do we have here that really solves this problem? Right?
Well, that's just it, isn't it? Like, and yeah, and especially anyway. You know, AIB must be a large bag holder as well in Atom and a variety of other currencies in the eco. You just like, all of those things are going to add up to substantially more potential return, like you said, than anything to be gained from this, either reputational on the one hand or financial from damages on the other hand. The knock-on effect I've seen of this is, even in a short period of time, is other people basically waving around the defamation stick and being like, see, that time when you did say something about me, I could have done this. And it's just like, it's such a bad precedent because now other people are talking about defamation lawsuits in the bloody interchain. You know, what are we doing? We're just completely wasting. Like, if that's the way this ecosystem is going to go, I'm out. What's the point? Fuck this shit. You know, because I tell you where nobody threatens to sue you for just going to work every day. Corporate contracting. You turn up, you fucking write your Terraform, you give your corporates, you give your executive summary, you say, hey guys, you should be running on AWS on GCP rather than running your own data center. You're wasting a load of money. You know, it may not look like it right now, but believe me, you're wasting money. Your job is selling widgets. You should be focused on selling widgets, not running servers. You know, you'll thank me in 5 years. Let's fucking go. YOLO. Come on. You hand that over to the board. You go about your way. You know what happens? You don't get fucking sued. I love it. That's how you make money in this business.